Assalamu alaikum, bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Many years ago, I was discussing with a Muslim organization regarding Zakat al-Fitr, and someone mentioned that it should be increased. And that kind of puzzled me, like, on what basis? On what basis will it increase the Zakat al-Fitr? Because, firstly, Zakat al-Fitr is the money that we give, or the thing that we pay to the poor, firstly as expiation, that Allah forgive us. And the hadith is there in Abu Dawood, which narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam declared the payment Zakat al-Fitr, or it's called Fitrana, or Fitra, or Sadaqat al-Fitr, as an obligatory duty in order to purify those who fast from useless and obscene activities, that is during the month of Ramadan, of course, and to provide food for the needy. It purifies the person from any shortcomings in Ramadan, but also it gives something to the poor person day of Eid, so they don't need to ask, especially the destitute, they don't need to ask anybody. So it gives them something on the day of Eid that they have to make a sweet dish or something, or food in the home, so they don't need to ask anything on the day of Eid. And by it, they can also celebrate the day of Eid. The things that Rasulullah ﷺ told us, which were the staples of that time, was wheat, barley, dates, raisins, and aqid. Aqid is dried whey, or dried yogurt. In Jordan and surrounding countries called Laban Jamid, in our part of the world, and in Afghanistan it's called Qurut, in the Central Asia it's called Kashk. So it's basically like blocks of, like balls of, or discs of dried yogurt. It's like rock hard. These 5 things are what Zakat al-Fitr is based on, but ultimately it comes back to the main staple of the country. Like in our case in Australia, the main staple is wheat, because we make bread from it, and that's the main food in this country. If you go to Southeast Asia, the staple there would be rice, and other countries would be something else. Now, the Zakat al-Fitr, since it is wheat, and the Hanafis and Shafis differ on the measurements, and there's details behind it, and there are other views as well which are slightly different from this, but basically taking the view that in the Hanafi view of 1.633 kilos of flour, and in the Hanafi view, the Shafi view of 2.176 kilo of flour, then you can very easily just go to your local supermarket and you can select an intermediate. Obviously, you can go to wholesale, get it much cheaper. If you go to these South Asian shops and they sell sacks of like 10, 20 kilos, of course, you're going to get it cheaper per kilo. So we go with an intermediate level wheat, not the cheapest one in the supermarket, not the most expensive. So at the moment, if you look at the market, it's about $5 for 2 kilos or $2.50 a kilo. Based on that, a approximate minimum can be reached, which is in the Hanafi fiqh will be $4.10 for 2024 for Zakat al-Fitr, will be $4.10 and for the Maliki, Shafi and Hanbali madhab will be $5.44 or 2.176 kilos, but which is worth about $5.44. Another matter that's very important, especially in the Hanafi fiqh, because Zakat al-Fitr and Sadaqah and Fidya, for those who can't fast due to old age, for example, and they're not able to recover from that, is the same as Zakat al-Fitr. So Fidya is the amount that a person for the 30 days can't fast, and they don't think they will recover from that sickness, so they pay that amount. So all you do is just times the $4.10 by 30, you get about 120 and a bit. Most charities you see for that 30 days is actually what they've calculated about $150. So that's a little bit over, but it's safer to go a little bit over, and there might be some administrative fees and whatnot, but basically comfortably over in terms of the amount of fidya that you give to the poor. Now, fidya is a separate issue, but it is based the same. In the Hanafi fiqh especially, exactly the same. It's the same as Zakatul Fitr. Now, just think about it. Like if we made, let's say, Zakatul Fitr a number like $20, because we felt like increasing it, then the fidya will also have to increase because it's the same amount. So it'll be $600. So think about this. From $120, you went to $600 based on trying to do something good. But then there's a pensioner, someone older, nearly $500 discrepancies there between the amount they would have to pay because the Zakat al-Fitr was calculated wrong, right? So although we're well-meaning and we want to do the best thing, we want to pay more, we want to give the poor more, Allah's put us generally in a position, but we can only go by what Rasulullah ﷺ has taught us. he's given us specific things, specific staples, number one. Number two, on top of that, the measurements, the amounts are set. There's no room for actually making our own measurement. So the amounts, yes, there is a range of views, and within those views, there are sub-views, but basically you're looking somewhere between, just under 2 kilos to just over 2 kilos, right? That's the amount. So you get, like I said, for Zakatul Fitr, you get $4.10 in the Hanafi madhab, you get $5.44. Mind you, in the Shafi'i, Maliki, and Hanbali madhabs, the amounts should be given the actual staple itself. Personally, what I do, I'll accept, is that it doesn't cost much. I have relative overseas in a place where there's poor people that are deserving of Zakatul Fitr. What I do is that I asked my cousin to buy the bag of wheat and a day or two before, and he keeps it for me on my behalf. And then on the day of Eid in the morning, which is the best time to give to the poor, that he, between Fajr and Eid Salat, he gives it to the actual flour to the person. However, in the Hanafi fiqh, you can give the money to the poor. You can transfer money. But you see the difference between the two, where there's a connection made, even if it's indirect, but there's still a connection made to a specific family, and the food is given. And it makes you think about the thing that you're doing as well. Most of us do Zakatul Fitr just as electronic transfer. Not much thought is put into who it's going to, how that family will benefit, how it's connected to them. So that is something like an extra benefit of giving it in actually the staple, and that will benefit the person physically that is given to them. The another point, that the barley amount based on this year's, so I'm calculating this about a week out from Ramadan. So if you want to do it on high, if you want to give more, right? Like if $4.10 is nothing, like, it's probably like a soft drink and a bit. These days, it's not in a large amount. Since we can't change the wheat flour price, because that's what's a supermarket, you can even make it go cheaper to, as I mentioned, the South Asian stores and so forth and other things. But you maybe pay the amount or give the amount of the other staples that were at that time, which are much more. So barley is $9.80 per person. Dates are $32, and the dates, barley is again based on what the supermarkets and shops are selling and online what they're selling in Australia. Dates, according to good quality dates, not the most expensive dates, because you can get dates that'll cost you $150 for Zakatul Fitr if you base, not the most cheapest ones that are you find in the home brand type ones, but dates $32.70, so based on a $10 per kilo for dates. Sultanas / raisins, so forth, they're about $9 per kilo, so $29.40 per person for Zakatul Fitr. And Aqit, which is the Laban Jamid, which is available in Dandenong in Melbourne. If you go to the market there, in the Afghani shops, you'll find it. It's $81.65 Zakatul Fitr person based on that. Generally, the rule is that we base it on the most common staple. In our case, it is wheat. However, if we wanted to give more, there's no restriction on giving more. Under the base of Zakatul Fitr, under giving us sadaqah as well. In Islam, we encourage to spend of our wealth. A mu'min is defined by someone who spends on the wealth that Allah has given for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The idea here is not to be stingy and to give less. The idea is that we give more, but at least if we know the minimum, we know the boundaries. Or at least I know that this is the absolute minimum, because as I mentioned before, some people, maybe you and I have more. If that criticism comes of other people, well, we're telling people to give less. It's not about giving less. It's about following Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has explained something to us, Sahaba radiallahu anhum has explained something to us, then we're obliged to learn that. And then if as policies, especially for organizations, to make a policy that is in line with what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, while at the same time encourage the Muslims to spend more, because the needs of the ummah are many. I will, in the link, provide the detailed working out of this, what the prices are based on, and there's a poster that you can download, which is also available with the details of all these working outs, inshallah ta'ala, and also that you can share with others that this is Zakatul Fitr for 2024, inshallah, and this is a fidya also for those who cannot fast, which is based on that as well. For the other three madai, fidya is based on the a quarter of the Zakatul Fitr. So whatever their Zakatul Fitr amount is $5.44. So their fidya amount is $1.36. So like I said, this sounds very less. If we do more, generally organizations in Australia, they're rounded up to $10. And that's fine. That's not a huge amount. But we cannot impose that amount on people that they have to give $10. We can encourage people, but the minimum amount, the main staple of the country is wheat. Wheat or Zakatul Fitr in the Hanafi madhab is $4.10, in the Shafi $5.44, in the Shafi'i, Malik, Hanbali madhab, schools of the Ahl Sunnah. In these madhabs, it's encouraged to give the actual staple, and I mentioned the benefit of that earlier. We should try to give the wheat itself to the poor person, inshallah ta'ala, or organize someone to deliver the wheat to that person. And because when you convert the dollar into other currencies, we can do much more in a country that might need, and this is what people look forward to. In Australia, giving the wheat might not be so useful because people generally are not baking bread on a regular basis, while in poorer countries, they are baking bread, they're making bread with their own hands. Hence, it is much useful for them that they have a large amount of flour in the home, they have their food covered for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that sort of thing. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and tawfiq to practice regarding Zakatul Fitr. Also, Ramadan is coming. Please remember in your du'as. And inshallah, we have a productive and with Quran, with sadaqah, with charity, with tilawah Quran, salat in the night, fasting in the day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the whole ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah bless us what remains of Sha'ban and make us reach the month of Ramadan.